Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and we got a fun episode ahead of us. We're doing a bunch more minor xenos tonight, so joining me is... Who's it gonna be? Who's my favorite guest gonna be? Christian, welcome! We're gonna hate on some xenos together, right?
Absolutely. I love talking about all the... I like how you group them all together, all the S ones, the Sslyth, the Slaugth, the sluts, everyone's favorite xenos.
Yeah. Well, I've been accused of being a shapeshifter because every minor Xenos episode, I'm like, I love Xenos. And the next one, I'm like, let's purge them. Just depending on who I'm with, really. I just go with the vibe. I'm really into that mob mentality. So
it's really about what Xenos you want as a pet. That's
yes. Okay. Well, I've been doing that one wrong. That it's more intimate, we'll say. We also got Jordan joining the mob tonight. You like Xenos overall, or just Christian doesn't like them? Where you at?
I mean, in a sense, I like Xenos in like a sci-fi. I like sci-fi stuff sense, but in another sense, I'm not a heretic, so I hate Xenos. But I have
the duality of man.
Yeah. Duality of man, yeah, isn't that the case? Hey, love to hate them. Yeah. Well, before we get into this episode, we will do some quick housekeeping.
Yeah, join the Patreon and the Imperial Tithe and support the show. You can get an ad-free version of the show for only $2.50 and video version for $5. Sometimes in the last few episodes, we actually have leaned a lot on visuals, so definitely worth your money for just $5 to get some video streamed too.
Yeah, when you talk to those minor Xenos, a picture is worth 1,000 words for some of them. So even in this episode, I know we got a couple cool pictures and images to pull up. So
yeah, so definitely worth it.
Yeah, and if you are a member of the Patreon community, you can also join our live stream, which we do for every recording of every show. And you can join us, engage in the conversation. As you'll hear throughout the episode, we will reference comments from the live stream guests. You could also be a call-in guest at the end of the show if you actually want to appear on the show. So
what the heck is this word that he used? Tache? Plus, you get to look at Jordan and his glorious tache.
I'm guessing he meant stash, but I'm going to assume.
Or tushy? Are you showing your hiney off every now and again?
My OF. You can get my OF on Patreon.
To the OFs. We always come back to that. Yes. And final little housekeeping is the Liber Malleus. We are still selling off both Loyalist and Chaos veteran Terminators. So you can come join that. And we just started doing the auction for 5 sergeants for the reforged Loyalists. So the auction goes from June 10th to June 23rd. So place your bid. All you got to do is email me. Then I'll kind of update people as you can kind of outbid people and get these cool sergeant spots. People in the Discord have been writing like squad lore together, which has been pretty interesting. And, maybe the sergeants can kind of manage that stuff. But, whatever you're into, you also could just give me your money. Skip the formalities and just join the Patreon. I think maybe it's a better sales pitch, but whatever, fuck it. So the auction's going. Yeah, let's talk about some minor Xenos. Today we are talking about the Slanni, the Slaugth, and the Sslyth. I'll give you guys a quick little sales pitch. The Slanni, they are an ancient, old, frog-like race. Some speculate that they are the old ones. Yeah, pretty neat. You guys are just blown away with that silence. So we also have the Slaugth. How do you guys say these guys?
The Slaugth.
The Sslyth.
Yeah.
Almost
the Sslyth.
Almost seems like a Scottish word or something. They have all these weird, sort of,
letters that don't belong.
Words.
Yeah. Well, you're both wrong. It's actually because basically this is a race compiled of like collective maggots that all form a humanoid shape. Think like Halo the Hunters, or there's other kind of examples of this too. I used another one earlier today with my wife when I'm trying to explain it, but I forget that one. But pretty cool. They're parasitic, and they're a great example of why we should all hate xenos, but also a great example of, you know, what fun xenos can look like. You know, these crazy, completely alien things. And then the final one that we're doing is the Sslyth. And yeah, honestly, they don't have a lot of information, yet they do have a model. And what we know is they're like, what do you call like a centaur, but not a horse? Like the Sslyth are snake bottoms, humanoid top. So it's not a centaur. It's like I don't know.
Nephilim.
Well, sure, I'll trust you. Yeah.
Or a
So they,
seraphim, maybe.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, and basically they just work as Dark Eldar mercenaries, and they're pretty secretive, and you know, we did not much know about them. So I was kind of I went on some tangents on that one, so don't look too much at that lore and think it's canon. And honestly, a lot of the Sslyth isn't, but we'll get to them anyways. Let's start off with the Slanni, though.
All right. The Slanni, also known in whispered tongues as the Old Slan, are beings of deep wisdom and stranger origin. Their minds vast and veiled in enigma, amphibious in form yet celestial in purpose, they move through time as echoes of a greater design. Across forgotten epochs, they have stood alongside the most inscrutable of powers, the Old Ones, those ancient architects whose very nature is lost to all but myth. Whether the Slanni are kin, servants, or fragments of the Old One's will is a secret known only to the stars and the darkest corners of the void. Together, the Slanni and the Old Ones etched the fate of the galaxy into the bones of creation. It was they who shaped the destinies of the younger races, the sorrowful Eldari, the cunning Jokero, and the scattered and fragile humans, the ever-hungering orcs, and even the deathless Necrons. Each bears the mark of a plan older than memory, crafted by hands no longer seen, guided by minds that watch the birth of suns. And at the heart of this ancient symphony stands the Slanni, the forgotten stewards of a design too vast for mortals to comprehend.
Yeah, very cool. And if you're watching, I just pulled up some images of them. Yeah, there's some old models that go back a ways. Look at these bad boys, these frog boys. Is there a reason that they're frogs? Like, is that one of the first life forms on our planet? Do you think? Like, do we know that kind of climbed out of the water?
I always found that odd too, because yeah, the frogs seem to be like their theme, and I assume it has to do with something about like primordial life, how tadpoles go from water to land. But that was just an assumption, you know, like
Yeah.
it's reading a lot in.
Um,
I don't know if there's a direct.
I will offer maybe a slightly alternative view, perhaps, or alternative theory, rather, hypothesis.
Are you a frog
Yes.
supremacist, Jordan?
I'm Major Keck boy over here. No. So a lot of ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Mesopotamian, Sumerians and whatnot, they employ frog iconography a lot in their writings and pictography. So they sort of viewed the frog as like a sacred animal. So I don't know if there's something to that. It could be, it is sort of associated with ancient civilization in many cases. So that's just one idea. I don't know. Pure speculation.
Yeah. The other thing too, like internally to the 40K mythos, well, I guess externally, is it's tied to Warhammer Fantasy. So the Slan, for any people familiar with fantasy, are pretty much transposed from fantasy into 40K. So the Slan are the Seraphon, or leaders of the Lizardmen, and I'm not super well versed in Warhammer mythology, but that obvious tie also exists, and you know why they chose them to be that and they share a very similar like relation to their version of the Old Ones, and you know, keepers of ancient secret knowledge, and like to do with the foundations of the world. But again, I don't know enough about it to delve much deeper than that.
Yeah, like frogs in a lot of ancient cultures are very mythical creatures too, and that could that could be tied to perhaps some frogs have psychedelic properties, and maybe people were tripping on frogs. So I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Again, don't take my word for it. It's just a thought.
No. Yes, I like it.
Shall we get into their appearance and biology? From the primeval waters of forgotten worlds emerged the Slann, ancient beings whose lineage winds back through the mists of time to the first stirrings of amphibious life. Their flesh is cool and ever moist, glistening with the memory of the swamps and murk where their kind first awakened. Webbed hands and feet, great lidless eyes, and skins that draw breath from water and air alike mark them as creatures of both land and liquid shadow. Their forms shimmer in myriad hues, emerald, sapphire, and gold, while rarer ones bear alabaster, pallor, or night dark skin, each color whispering of secrets known only to the stars. Some are striped, others mottled, their markings telling tales of clan and kind in tongues older than speech. Among these mysterious beings, those with vivid skin often shine with rare gifts, brilliance of thought, command of craft, or powers of unspoken. They stride with quiet majesty, 2 meters tall, though the females, larger still, bear an added weight of presence and power in the forgotten aeons of the galaxy. The old Slann, those who first charted the heavens, were known to wield minds like suns, vast, radiant, and capable of warping the veil of reality itself. Their descendants carry that echo still, and within their ancient eyes flicker embers of a might that once moved stars. That's pretty sweet. That's a kind of cool mythos around them. Very mystical.
Yeah, and thanks to you though, I couldn't focus on it because all I could think about was licking one of these guys and having a psychedelic trip. Even like the one line that I really like: among these mysterious beings, those with vivid skin often shine with rare gifts, brilliance of thought. There it is. You can lick them and get brilliance of thought.
I'm sure you can. Or
Yeah.
you'll just
Oh,
drop dead because it's so incredibly toxic.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, maybe we'll wait till the end to say, do we think they are the old ones, like the remnants that maybe changed their names, or somehow like a de-evolution, like a Cork to Orc example? But that question's also kind of going through my mind here of where they kind of really are. But maybe their powers and abilities will give us some more insight. The Slann are unrivaled in their psychic prowess, ancient minds attuned to the hidden forces that bind reality. Their greatest individuals, known as the Great Mages, can reach across the Imperium with a thought alone, shaping the warp like clay in their grasp. These beings do not merely cast spells or manipulate energy, they commune with the very spirit of the galaxy, navigating the tides of time and fate with eyes unclouded by mortal perception. It was the Slann who first recognized the powers of chaos and warned the ancient Eldari of the doom to come. And it was they who revealed the path of psychic potential that others would follow. Where other races struggle against the dangers of the warp, the Slann moved through it with purpose, discipline, and deep understanding. Yeah, cool. So they definitely, go hard. They're so similar to the old ones with like that psychic mastery and how they kind of they just have a deeper understanding than everyone else.
Yeah, they can manipulate the warp, which seems like more impunity than other species where there's always like a risk of things going wrong. The warp is so uncontrollable for most other species, but
yeah, even like just tapping into it and suffering like a head pop, no malicious demon attack or nothing, just a raw energy.
Yeah, it's just inherently dangerous.
Exactly.
They can just do a little hippity hoppity and they're in the warpity.
Your warp is now my property.
Oh my god. Yeah, I do like this little bit too about them. It's them who recognize the powers of chaos. I wonder if that moment in time, if like instantly they were like, "Hey, there's powers in, like there's gods in the warp, and there's all of them," and like we've talked about how the gods exist through all time across the warp or whatever, you know, that whole kind of time shenanigans. So yeah, they just all of a sudden like realize, oh shit, we can't go back in there. Now there's a bunch of like malicious entities all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some new old ones lore too that I didn't know before that might inform my opinions, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
Before that, let's get into their history. In the shadowed cradle of time, before man learned fire, and before the Eldar wept their first song, the Slanni walked the stars. They do not simply claim to be the eldest race of the galaxy. They may well be its firstborn. In those radiant cycles now lost to memory, their empire shimmered across the void like a constellation carved by gods. They were gardeners of the cosmos, guiding the trembling sparks of nascent life, reshaping ecosystems as if worlds were clay in their hands. With ineffable purpose, they culled predators, uplifted beasts, and whispered into the DNA of fledgling species. Many now wonder, did the Slanni dream the modern races into being? Yet even divine architects grow weary. Their dominion slowed, dimmed, and like a star slipping into red silence, their grand experiments were abandoned. They withdrew, not with fire, not with war, but as a mist from the morning sun. No record speaks of a fall, no enemy is named, no battle lost. Instead, the Slanni passed into stillness, their thoughts turning inward. Some speak of a great secret discovered, an esoteric truth so vast it drowned all desire for empire. Others whisper of transcendent enlightenment, an awakening so complete that conquest seemed a child's game. Whatever the cause, their interests shifted from the material to the mystical. In the arcane sciences and psychic truths, the Slanni stand peerless. They move through currents of reality unseen by others, studying the soul in the shape of dreams, as one might study the winds or the tides. It was in these forgotten aeons that the old Slanni beheld the tides of the warp and named them chaos. They warned the ancient Eldari long before the fall, speaking not in panic but with solemn inevitability. The Eldari, proud and radiant, heard and largely dismissed them. Yet some among them listened. Those who did fled to the craft worlds, guided by echoes of Slann wisdom. The very webway that the Eldari now claim as their own was shaped with knowledge first drawn from the Slann hands, from the Imperium's heart. Even now, arcane symbols in the lost ruins of the Slann whisper of the warp's double-edged glory. Power and peril, creation and undoing. Some even speak in hushed tones of the Jokero, beast engineers beyond reason, said to be crafted by the Slanni themselves in some long-forgotten jest or purpose. Perhaps then they still walked the blue world called Terra. Now what remains of the Slanni resides in the cold galactic north, hidden among sister worlds bound by harmony and ancient silence. These worlds echo with uniform culture and language, as if each is but a reflection of the same celestial thought. Yet strange fragments of the Slann race are scattered across the stars, living as painted savages in isolation, some even within the realms of man. They are disconnected, yet patterned, as if once part of a great diaspora whose meaning has been lost to time. To encounter the Slann is to meet a people without hunger, without fear, without need. They trade with disinterested calm of scholars studying insects. Outsiders who come seeking profit leave instead with the creeping sense that they have been observed not by merchants, but by silent gods behind reptilian eyes. Ancient minds who remember the stars being born.
Yeah. When writing this, I kept kind of like, we don't fully know, you know, and like I said, we got to wait till the end before we get your opinion on are they the old ones or not. But like, I tried to write it maybe like their sons or like just that mythos in the lines, like how far along or how much of the old ones projects did they help with, you know? Were they directly the tutelage of it, you know? We hear the Eldar, but maybe the Eldar were like a second. They were more of the creation, where the Slann were more of the children. But who fucking knows?
Yeah, the
Sounded like that.
you have to think if they weren't the old ones, they were at least like old one adjacent, like they coexisted with them in some way. But
maybe it's like they genetically modified themselves into the Slanni.
yeah, possibly. Well, we'll
So
hold
it's like that
hold
was
hold
like
your
they-
theories, Mark.
Oh shit! Write that down though.
All right, let's get into the homeworld and galactic geography. Far beyond the light of known stars, in the quiet spiral above the galactic pole, lies the domain of the Slanni, an enigmatic constellation of verdant and ancient worlds. Upon these sister planets, they dwell in harmonious reflection, each society echoing the others in speech, thought, and sacred craft. So are they like they're still contemporaneous?
Yeah, but very rare. But yeah, if you go up into like a part of the galaxy that's super hard to get to,
Okay.
Like it's up above like the maelstrom where like the warp bit, like that big warp rift is, and like so they kind of exist, but also has anyone been up there to check on them the last 1,000 years?
Yeah, my understanding too is they're like all scattered around too.
Yeah.
So like you might encounter one randomly on a home world, or a world, I guess I should say,
Yeah.
and then like another planet, some distance away, you'll encounter another one. But they create a galactic pattern if you look at it, but really they look really fractured.
Yeah.
Which like is where the whole theory of like it looked like they were a cohesive empire, and for whatever reason they're not anymore.
Yeah. And even they could blend in. Like the Tau have a auxiliary race called the Talg, Talg, I believe. But they're like a frog people, so maybe people just think that they're them. Just blend in. So you don't really. They're not going around and sharing that they're like the direct descendants and like informing people of all this and sharing their secrets. They're not like a Harlequin-esque type vibe. They are very reserved.
They kind of almost remind me like the Galaxy's version of one of those really old Amazon tribes that almost no one interacts with ever. They only see them on like satellite images.
Yeah, okay. Except like highly advanced, but yes.
Well,
exactly.
relative, I mean, maybe relative to like the rest of the galaxy, they're primitive, like the same way Amazonian tribes relative to us are primitive. But
Sure. We got some fun comments. Purge says, so they're like Murlocs or smart Murlocs with guns and spaceships.
Aren't those the things you can kill in World of Warcraft?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they're called Murlocs.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
Those are Murlocs. He's
Oh,
saying
Morlocks.
Morlocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fuck,
which are
I couldn't
from
read.
the
That's
time
my
between-
bad.
No, but that could have been his intention because that makes more sense than Morlocks, because Morlocks are like cave dweller.
Like
almost
Murlocs are
like,
amphibian.
Murlocs are like yeah. So maybe he did
Okay.
mean Murloc, but he wrote Morlock.
Purge asks, you think they knew about the Nids before they arrived in the galaxy? I think so. And my reasoning for that is they're like super psychic, these guys. So I feel like they would probably sense that shadow in the warp coming. Because even like, I believe there's like a story of Chief Librarian Tigerius of the Ultramarines who like knew the Hive Fleet was coming and reached out to it before it was even in the galaxy or something like that. I could be a little wrong on those details, but I feel like that's...
Would it matter though? Like, it's not like they would do anything to stop it or change it, or...
Yeah, would it matter? That's a great question. Yeah. Yeah, like it doesn't seem like they're too active, and that's their whole thing. They almost want to reserve themselves to that mythical status. And even just reading their history, we know one time they kind of fled when the galaxy was on the death doorstep, with the enslaver plague. So maybe they'll do it again. Just kind of...
Yeah. Lupercal just added to his thought there. I'm getting that whole you put up a blank vibe, but more an early warning system. Okay, so you're he's thinking like, were they intentionally planted as like pylons around to serve as an alert system? I mean, you could guess that. I don't know that there's any evidence to support it, but
yeah.
why not? Sure.
We're going with it. Let me rewrite everything else here. Go with that idea. So we're going to their cultures and beliefs. Bound by a hidden order, theirs is a closed circle, impervious to foreign winds. Yet echoes of their kind are found across the galaxy, living as primordial shadows upon distant worlds, even among the worlds of man. These wanderers are forced from the great these wanderers are divorced from the great wisdom of their kin and commune only with the earth and sky. They speak seldom to outsiders, and when they do, it is with inscrutable intent. Traders who approach them often leave, not with profit, but with a chilling sense that they were weighed and measured by the minds as old as the stars. Studied, but not welcomed. For the Slanni desire little. What passes between hands is but a ritual gesture, not a need. Yeah, I think too, I get this image of them wearing like their robes and kind of just like slowly walking and down the trail, and people are looking at them, and he's kind of projecting a psychic image of like just more of an old man or more of just like a dirty homeless person or whatever it needs to be to kind of keep that illusion of just like hidden. I don't really want to be seen. If I'm going to be seen, like it's because I'm going to use you for something essentially.
Yeah, it's almost like the Emperor when he kind of hides his radiant form.
Yeah, exactly. Within their veiled society, the Slann move as part of the cosmic wheel, each life turning through destined cycles. Their world is tribal yet tranquil. No wars between kins, no petty struggles for dominance. At the peak, this structure sits the great mages, figures robed in secrecy and power, whose knowledge of the warp and unseen laws of the cosmos defy the grasp of lesser species. Beneath them, the mage chief guides their tribes with wisdom inherited from ages long past. But the rhyme of the Slann life is not static. The rhythm of the Slann life is not static. Each soul is called, in time, to shift form and purpose. Without warning, a builder becomes a wanderer, a poet becomes a warrior, and all obey this inner summonings as though drawn by an ancient drumbeat, once one cannot ignore. Their rituals are not strange to behold. Their rituals are strange to behold, but to the Slanni, they are very scaffolding of the soul. Yeah, this is a very interesting little piece here about how they kind of change forms. And as I was putting this together, I kind of think, okay, so they're warning the old one, or they're warning the Eldar about the chaos gods. And maybe they also kind of imparted this path system on them, because it seems like they almost do their own path system. Like, I'm going to wander this because it's good for my soul. I need to just build things for a while.
Yeah, I don't like that, but it does seem to parallel pretty closely. The other thing I'm trying to recall from my lizardman knowledge is they are very much about the caste system as well, and like genetic caste systems. So they spawn creatures to serve roles. So you have like the skinks, you have like the warrior class, and they're like genetically bred to fulfill that task. So I wonder if that's kind of like a nod to that as well.
Yeah. Like, it's the sci-fi version of that. Instead of breeding, you do it genetically.
Yeah.
But
on that note, let's get further down the path of technology. In the veiled domains of psychic thought and forbidden sciences, none rival the Slanni. Masters of soul force and seekers of the hidden strands that weave through the fabric of reality, they walk the edges of spirit and void with steps both deliberate and divine. Their ancient sages, the great mages, are the keepers of knowledge so profound it defines mortal comprehension. Guardians of truths drawn not from books, but from the raw breath of the warp itself. It was these Eldar Slanni who once lifted the veil for the Eldari, revealing to them the pathways of the warp and whispering the first dread names of chaos. Such gifts were not given lightly, and their consequences ripple still through the dark currents of time. So that seems to, be the case that they, I don't know if it's metaphorical paths or literally the path system being like given to them as a means to escape the ravages of chaos.
Yeah. Maybe I gave a little canon disclosure about the Sslyth, and the Slanni are, not that I was trying to stretch the truth on them, they're like written intentionally like vague sometimes or contradictory, and there's been a couple versions of lore changes for them or kind of like weird shifts.
Yeah.
So
a little grain of,
yeah, so just that little nugget. So how much of this is just kind of somebody just trying to stoke a little bit here, and how much of it is actually confirmed? Hard to say.
Yeah, which is kind of, I'll get into it later. It ties to my overall point with these guys, but I'll save it for the end discussion here.
Okay.
Though steeped in contemplation and mystic lore, the Slanni are not without the tools of war. Each tribe hoards armories of vast and unknowable age, artifacts passed from hand to hand in ritual gift-giving, their origins lost to fallen stars and extinct empires. Among these sacred caches lie relics of forgotten alien craft. Yet the Slanni warriors, braves of their kin, march not clad in divine relics, but in arms familiar to younger species. Lasguns, energy blades, and devices that hum with restrained power. Their leaders bear weapons of disruption and command, power gloves, axes humming with ancient force, and minds shielded by energy fields. Armor among them is more symbol than shield, padded vestments woven with meaning and mystery. Protective fields shimmering around them, and their vision is altered by alchemical rites of light and lens. Even their speech, cast across distances, flows through the unseen threads, for every Slanni bears the means to speak across the silence and time. That's so funny that they're like super advanced, but they like to use lasguns.
Yeah. Now we're going deep into speculation, but maybe we put the cycle of life and death and rebirth, and like they can bring themselves back, and maybe death is a rebirth process, and it plays into that, kind of like the tadpole where they're just going through the process of changing. But that's all just nonsense what I've just said, so
it's all nonsense.
Take it as you will. Ultimately,
I will say, so some of this, again, I'm playing off of memory here, which is terribly unreliable. Because the Slann were so old in real life, like from the first editions of Warhammer, like at the time, their war gear would reflect kind of those earlier iterations of like, oh yeah, give them power. Like even though the terminology of power glove is kind of what was a predecessor to the power fist.
Yeah.
Like the use of axes and things. So there's a mix of that as well as the model range. Being an attempt at when Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K were a lot more closely paralleled to be able to use models across ranges. So yeah, things like the way the fantasy lizardmen would look would be easy to portray if you literally just grab the model, slap a lasgun on him, and now he's a 40K model.
Yeah.
For an in-lore excuse too, though, like lasguns are pretty reliable and advanced technology. They're often shat on because of like their ubiquity, but that speaks to how good of a technology they are, right? Like,
yeah. Well, just imagine this. Okay, so you have master crafted lasgun made by the most ancient mind of the galaxy, and it shoots out a Imperator volcano cannon size las bolt. And it just obliterates the city, and it's like that came out of that rifle gun. So maybe they can crank those bad boys up when they need to.
I mean, but there
right,
is
exactly.
The term like, though, like don't reinvent the wheel. The main concept of the wheel has been in existence for thousands and thousands of years in our own timeline, and it's it's generally not really changed conceptually. Yeah, you have different, we have like rubber that we use on wheels, and we use them in different ways, but it's still just a wheel. And so you could see that there's probably certain tech that just survives because it doesn't need to be changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
gets
and like
changed in like small minor ways, but like the basic form of it is always remains the same.
yeah, and I suppose even like if you've been around for 1 billion years, you're like, you know what? The first 64 million years we tinkered with this. Now we're good.
Yeah.
Like they just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into their military organization. So Slann warriors are called braves, and a number of braves plus a leader makes up a war band. The number of warriors in a band varies, but is usually between 6 and 8, although it can vary between 2 and 12. A senior officer, called a war leader, commands a group of war bands. Where armies are large, it will have many war leaders, all of whom will meet before battle to make plans and exchange ideas with experienced war leaders, chiefs, and mages. The war leader in overall charge is the war chief, selected from and by other war leaders. The greatest and most respected individuals in Slann society are the great mages. Their aid would be sought in battle, for their knowledge of sorcery, philosophy, and the arcane sciences is formidable. The great mages remain aloof from society, although their advice is constantly sought by the social leaders. Slann society is tribal, and the leader of each tribe is known as the mage chief, except among primitive Slann. Tribes never fight each other, and tribal relations are peaceful. The concept of the warband is important to the Slann attitude to life. Every Slann is expected to live its full life according to a strange, mystic, and largely unfathomable ritual, as part of which the individual passes through life stages. The calling to a life stage would seem a real and almost unstoppable thing to a Slann, and can happen at any time, so that peaceful technician may become a wanderer, a warrior, a hermit. Once a Slann feels the call to become a warrior, it joins one of its tribe's war bands, or forms a war band of its own. Because of this unpredictable recruiting method, war bands change all the time. Okay, that's kind of a unique take on how their society sort of functions and what people's vocations are.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's the same for everyone? Like maybe the time varies between, but you always go from like a wanderer, so you can gain some life experience, then you go to a builder, then a warrior. Do you think it progresses like that, or it's just random?
I think it depends again if you go back to what I was saying about the Warhammer fantasy parallels. Are they genetically bred to be a certain way, in which case they're like locked in?
Yeah, I mean, here it suggests in the script anyway, it suggests that it's not very determined. It's almost kind of random. But
Yeah.
Genetics can be random. In fact, genetics
well,
is
not
mostly
if you're
random.
genetically modified. Then it's not
Except you're
random.
the very opposite of randomness.
All right. Every Slann tribe maintains a huge stock of weapons and equipment. Tribes often exchange items as gifts, and many pieces are of an incalculable age. Some equipment kept in this way derives from ancient alien cultures, now dead or forgotten. However, very little of this equipment ever filters through to the braves, most of whom use weapons similar to those employed by humans and other races. A typical warband will be equipped with lasguns and may include up to 3 individuals with special weapons. Favored special weapons are beamers and graviton guns, although lasers, heavy lasers, and other weapons are used too. Slann braves all carry some sort of close combat weapon, often a simple melee hand weapon, such as a mace or club. Leaders have neurodisruptors and may have the equivalent of a power axe or power fist. The Slann prefer to rely on energy field armor rather than physical protection. Armor is worn, but has mostly a mystic rather than practical function. This takes the form of a padded chestplate, similar to flak armor, and giving the same protection displacer field armor is standard amongst land braves. In addition, all Slann carry communicators, and warriors are given photochromatic injections.
Hold on, sorry. Photochromatic injections. You think, like, what does that mean exactly?
I don't photochromatic, maybe like some sort of light injection of some kind.
Yeah, like I think either one of two things, either like some type of camouflage where they're reflecting light and blending, or maybe just like it's like skin pigmentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like a what do you call them? Chameleon.
Yeah.
Photochromatic is defined as capable of changing color on exposure to radiant energy as light.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Or photochromic. So photochromatic would come from that, but yeah.
Cool.
Slann costume is very exotic. At first glance, this makes them look very primitive, with fur skins, feathers, and religious tokens hanging from their bodies and equipment. The impression is reinforced by the skin paint, which they decorate their bodies, and by ritual tattooing and scarring. In fact, all of these practices are connected with the esoteric Slann mystical philosophies and are somehow meshed up with their whole attitude of life, the universe, and their part in it. Individual warbands adopt color schemes, as braves will often fight only for a short time before being called to some other activities. Warbands are always in a state of flux, and uniforms are impermanent. It is kind of interesting. They aren't very collectivist as like many other species in the galaxies are. They seem to have very much an individualistic flair and are open to change.
Well, Jordan, as the most evolved society, they should be.
Yeah.
So
Right?
progressive, these Slann.
Slann use vehicles entirely of their own design, most of which are walkers or combined hoverers and flyers. As with weapons, the Slann maintain a vast reserve of vehicles, which are available to those forming warbands. The type of vehicle a warband might be permitted to requisition depends upon the leader's standing in the society. Various aspects of his life so far, and most importantly, upon mystic divination. Selecting a vehicle which will bring the warband luck necessitates careful calculation, similar to that of casting horoscopes. The Slann regard the vehicle as a member of the warband and have ritualistic regard for all of their equipment. The Slann fight for reasons beyond the understanding of other intelligent races. A warrior is fulfilling an important part of his life cycle. It sees the immediate goal as fighting and wouldn't think it appropriate to consider why this is. A Slann would no more think of tactics than it would question the act of war. When Slann troops are obviously doomed, they will die fighting. Defeat is not a Slann concept. Slann fight for the love of fighting, not to win or lose, and a gallant defeat is just as good as a glorious victory. Many Slann believe that they are fated to die as warriors and are perfectly happy to do so.
Yeah, that becomes interesting because I feel like that's not the vibe you would get from them. This like super old, ancient, almost immortal, godlike race would be more likely to like flee than risk their life in any meaningful way. But yeah, they when they cycle between these cycles, they just go all in.
I'm
Yeah.
sort of curious, like did we, I don't know if we cover at all like their breeding patterns. Does like one Slann female have like lay 100 or 200 eggs? so that it can make like life a little more expendable.
I couldn't find anything, but I couldn't bring myself to Google frog fucking, so we'll have to use our imagination for this one, boys.
Well, I would
Finish
be somewhat
Topic.
I would just be somewhat curious. Like, there are even species in our world that, like, because they have so many offspring, life is almost cheap for them, a lot cheaper than other species that don't have as many offspring, where they fight far harder to protect their offspring, and they're like evolutionarily adapted to be more emotionally invested in their offspring, whereas some species are not invested in their offspring at all and could care less if they die. Sometimes they'll even kill them.
I like that. That almost makes me want to flip my concept of the Slann being genetically modified old ones to the old ones now being genetically modified Slann, where like, yeah, they're breeding so much, like they have powers, like, yeah, they're not like overly interested in taking over the galaxy or anything. But then you get the old ones who are way more interested in doing stuff, way more out there doing things. Limited life cycle, less of them it seems like too, potentially. But that's
hard to say.
I have a couple of thoughts. One, you also see echoes of obviously orcs in that kind of views on warfare. This is almost like a more refined.
Was thinking that,
like the orcs version is a little bit silly, and this is like a more refined version of that. And the other thing too is it could be a biological thing. It could be a thing where they're almost like they believe in some kind of resurrection cycle or something that would fit in kind of with that theme of like rebirth and cyclical natures, where like they don't care if they die, or like a lot of warrior cultures too. Like, it doesn't make sense to us because we lack that sense of warrior culture in the modern age for the most part in a lot of cases. But there's like all kinds of ancient cultures like Vikings, Aztecs, like warfare was really tied to religion. And so
Valhalla. Yeah, sure.
Right, exactly. So like death, you're thinking of it in a very pragmatic sense of like, oh, if you're an advanced alien race, you would avoid death at all costs. Well, not necessarily. Not if your belief system didn't fear death, right? Like, it's just natural, or it's a glorious thing to die in battle.
Or you get resurrected. Like, the Eldar Yunari, they can resurrect themselves from the warp with their souls and stuff. So it is something that they could potentially have mastered. But
I don't want to I would use that as a separate example, only in that like resurrection implies like a lack of fear of death, because you'll come back, versus like death itself being an
a glory. Sure.
So they're distinct concepts but similar. But any number of those could also explain their attitudes, I guess.
I do know like Viking Nordic societies that, especially within like Odin worship, they were very deterministic, and they just believed everything was fated by the gods, and nothing wasn't fated. Like, think of like the most hardcore Calvinist. That was sort of like the like old Odin worship, like Nordic pagans conception, was that there really wasn't anything that you could do because it was all fated by the gods anyway. So it's
why run from it? Why fear it?
So they had this very fatalistic view of battle and fighting, and it was just like, if it's your time to die, then it's your time to die. But
the same thing is present in like modern sects of like Islamism, right? Too, where all is as God wills, right? So if you die now, that's when you were meant to die anyway. So again, don't run from it, don't hide from it. It just is.
Nice.
So
the military is pretty cool, though. If you think about it, you add up all these little factors. They got force shields, lasers, stealth skin is pretty fucking cool. I forget what it's called, photochromatic or whatever. And warp powers, man, it would be a pretty crazy army to fight. You shoot them
Yeah.
if you can even see them, and it just like dissipates. You're like, what?
You hit their shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting. You mentioned Halo earlier, Mark, and I'm getting strong elites, Halo Elite vibes. They can turn invisible. They have energy shields.
Warrior
They
type.
have a warrior culture. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this episode, like the Xenos have kind of broken down into alphabetical, but also minor themes. So this is a Halo episode with the Slaugth and the Slann. The Sslyth. Do we got any in the Covenant? Any snake folk?
Not off the top of my head.
Damn, perfection.
I'll find a comparison. I'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay,
we'll get there.
there.
I'll think of some way to shoehorn that.
Court
in.
calls it double nerding, so we'll get there. We'll get there.
I love double nerding.
You want a nerd in each hand, eh, Jordy? Jeez.
Yep.
Okay, galactic.
If you could, you take a nerd in the mouth too. Yeah.
I could take 2 in the mouth.
Triple nerding.
Yeah.
Double penetration,
That's
baby.
a sight. Of lore, into your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. Galactic relations. The Slann walk apart from the younger races, their presence like a fading echo of the galaxy's first breath. To most, they are myth, ancient architects spoken in the hushed reverence of forgotten texts. When others burn with ambition, the Slann remain distant, inscrutable. They do not conquer, nor do they seek alliance, for their interests lie not in dominion, but in the vast unfolding of destiny and pattern. They do not appear silent observers on the edges of the Xenos Wars or in the depths of ancient ruins. They offer no parley, only presence. To the Eldar, they're ghostly ancestors. To mankind, unknowable enigmas. Even the orcs speak of the old frogs in a strange, broken legends. The Slann do not seek friendship, yet neither do they strike in hostility. Instead, they study. They remember. In moments of rare contact, the Slann have shown a particular, almost detached mercy, intervening in moments of dire consequence or vanishing just before doom unfolds. Their warnings to the Eldari before the fall echo across the millennia, a testament to their foresight. Some whispered that the Slann still guide the fate of lesser species from afar, shaping outcomes not with armies, but with knowledge whispered across time. Yet just as often, they remain entirely absent, indifferent to suffering, untouched by pleas. Other races may cross the stars in ships of war and light, but the Slann drift through the currents of meaning itself. To them, or to speak of relationship with the Slann is to misunderstand them. They are not participants in the galaxy's dance, but they are an ancient music that plays unheard in the deepest silence. This watcher, looker vibe, I think, is very important to the overall vibe of them, for sure. Just they're not engaged, man. And also, if you guys want to share your theories about them first, maybe we could do that now. Do you like them kind of being old ones? Maybe they're proto-old ones. Maybe they're genetically modified. What are we going with?
I want to go with leaving the mystery open-ended. That's what I'm the strongest. No. But like,
I know.
I
Cop
have to say it. No,
speculate,
it's not.
you son of a bitch.
It's fun to speculate, and I will speculate. But I want to say my preference, my most greatest desire, is that they do not Horus Heresy this and explain away all the mystery.
Yeah, sure.
So having said that, I like to think of them more so as a secondary race rather than the old ones themselves, only because the Necron seems so much more advanced than these guys that I struggle to put them on the same level if these were the old ones. Granted, they could be a devolved version. I could go with that.
Yeah.
I do like that they exist, and I definitely would incorporate lizardmen from the fantasy range to represent them on tabletop because they have some really cool models. So I do want them to be around as they are.
I disagree with that lizardman thing that you keep saying, to be honest with you. I don't think that's the best model used. Like, that's a lizard, not a frog. Like, you ever
No. Okay, sorry. I should say the Slann part of the Lizardman range is specific. On their floating thrones.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
They
Yeah,
have a really
there is
cool-
the one model that would be very cool.
Or have you seen the Lord Karok model? That thing is huge.
Okay,
It's very cool.
Let me look at it.
Yeah, I would definitely like you slap those guys down on the table and use them as proxies, if they are even really proxies. They pretty much are just Slann.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want them to exist. I want them to be around. I would prefer them as like a secondary species rather than being old ones themselves, personally. But I also do really want to know what the old ones do look like.
Yeah.
Jordan?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I think I'm going to stick with I think they were probably contemporaneous with the old ones. Maybe genetically related, perhaps. I'm not. Yeah, I'm open to that, but my guess is that they weren't the old ones themselves. I just feel like there would be more evidence to suggest such a important connection, or important like import in galactic history. You'd think there'd be a little more evidence, because there's a lot of evidence for other things that are just as old, but it seems like these guys perhaps just live contemporaneously with the old ones.
Yeah. Purge says, they are the Watchers in the Dark is my main speculation in regards to the old ones. I really don't want to have take away for. Yeah, I don't know about them being the Watchers in the Dark, those Dark Angel aliens. Sell me on it. Type up a 40-page rant and lay it on me.
I think he's tying, because there is that whole like observational aspect to them.
Sure.
And there's that strong warp resistance mastery that Watchers also exhibit. I think physically, obviously, we don't know what Watchers look like exactly, but Watchers don't give off frog vibes to me, personally, or size. If you look at what Slann look like size was, again, going off the fantasy models of a Slann mage priest, but it could be that Watchers are also a similar engineered species. We could go with that, but I unless Purge, you do have like a really like
let's see if he
connection you're gonna drop in the chat there.
Yeah, 10 minutes later you'll drop it on us. I think my speculation is I think either they were before the old ones and genetically modified the old ones, and the race kind of split. Like when humanity reaches this point where like we can get cybernetic upgrades and stuff, there will be humans who are like, I'm not touching that stuff, and the race will split and start to like have two very distinct evolutionary paths of bionics and like weird genetic enhancements and stuff. So I think that's kind of the split. There's kind of who's which side of it is hard to say, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I will say the whole ancient aliens devolving trope is a thing. Star Wars has two really prominent ones, the Qua and the Rakata, both experience very similar falls where they're like super advanced ancient aliens, and they like devolve to the point like one becomes pretty much like a dinosaur, and the other one's like become just savage barbarians. But they used to be like galaxy spanning empires, so it's not unheard of in other franchises that these could be devolved forms of old ones.
There is, I will say, there are some human civilizations that devolve not evolutionarily or biologically, but they devolve civilizationally. It has been observed a few times. Like there's some societies in kind of the Southeast Asia region that they've found that were pretty advanced, and then they got cut off by a flood or whatever, and then one part of the civilization just completely devolves and becomes way more primitive than they were before. So there are examples of that. A good book to read, I read about that actually, is called How Innovation Works by Matt Ridley, and he kind of goes into all these societies that actually did devolve technologically, I would say, not really biologically.
Sure.
But, I mean, it can happen.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, man.
Another thing that kind of supports that for me is like the reference to their. It almost sounds like they act a lot ritualistically, which implies that they don't. I don't want to say they don't know how things function, but the ritual aspect of it makes it like it just reminds me of like the Mechanicus, right? Where like
Sure.
they don't fully grasp what it is they're doing or why they do it. They just do it and it works. I could be reading too much into that.
The complete flip side of that, where they understand so deeply how everything works and they tap into the ritual of the universe. But
that's also fair too. Yeah, I that was kind of a long reach on my part, but either
or. As for playing them on tabletop, I don't know what rules you'd use. Hard to say. Minis, I think you just got to find the old original sculpts. I think part of this is like you're an old one, man. You're these old ancient goofy things. Get the old models. They look so silly. They look so fun.
I'm gonna hard disagree with you, Mark, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, that's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. We just have to, at the end of the day, not stab each other.
I don't even know if I agree with that.
Oh man. All right. Well, the next race we got is the Slaugth, the maggot people. We're gonna start off with a fun quote here.
The worm that walks has come for us all. Found carved into a bulkhead. Watch post Hazaroth, Century 17. All hands lost. Attacker unknown. 123 M40.
The worm that walks. Fuck, man. Of all the races, you can hate this one the most. It's just so gross. And foreign and parasitic, and you're trying to kill it. You're stomping on it. You're just squishing worms on you. You'd be like, fuck, this is even worse. I'd rather not.
Yeah, freaking maggots have like an inherent association with disgust, as they should, with like rotting and death and all that. Yeah. Few names spoken in hushed tones by the order of xenos evoke the same chill as that of the Slaugth, a species so alien and malevolent that even seasoned inquisitors hesitate before acknowledging their existence. Cloaked in conspiracy and rot, the Slaugth have seeped into the hidden layers of galactic history, puppeteering events from the shadows. Their presence is felt not in open war, but in the slow, creeping corruption of empires, and in the silent decay of worlds where the dead do not rest. Whispers speak of entire civilizations dismantled without a shot fired, their leadership hollowed from within, consumed by something far worse than treason, trust in the wrong whisper. Where others conquer with blade and blaster, the Slaugth unravel societies with eerie patience, using networks of human collaborators bound not by ideology, but by the flesh of addiction. Their reach stretches far through mercantile fronts, criminal syndicates, and political agents, all manipulated through a blend of xenotech and psychoactive alchemy. The true horror lies not in the monsters themselves, but in the knowledge that entire sectors could already be rotting from the inside, feeding unseen masters in the dark.
Yeah. What sucks about them is they just consume human flesh. And we'll get into some of the horrific ways they do it later. But yeah, man, just truly in the darkest shadows of the Imperium lurks these creatures that just devour you entirely.
Yeah, and it's not even just that they're predators, it's that they corrupt societies. Like they infiltrate and do political maneuvering and
starts a cult that starts feeding him corpses of children, like destabilizing generations.
Or like embeds itself with the criminal underworld as well as the political upper class. Like it can manipulate both even at the same time. Like very Darth Sidious.
I'm not going to make any racial jokes, but I'm just going to throw that out there. Of any people.
Communist, Jordan.
Okay. Yeah.
Communist. Reminds me of communism.
Oh, man.
Slowly rotting your society from within.
Parasite that just leeches off you, tries to eat your corpse, but you're like, haha, my corpse is already rotten.
Lupercal's already jumping in with, okay, the Slaugth are also giving me Watcher vibes.
Oh my god.
Where the Jekyll and Hyde thing, good when they talk to the lion, and then when he's not looking, they are consuming people. You know, I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I don't believe it, but I also don't hate it.
That's so funny.
Okay, let's get into their appearance and biology. To gaze upon a sloth unmasked is to understand the true nature of revulsion. Their bodies are a bloated mass of boneless, glistening tissue, resembling massive, segmented worms, slick with translucent mucus, pale, eyeless faces, and needle-like feeding structures hint at an evolutionary history designed not for beauty or speed, but for consumption, cold, methodical, and intimate. They are not creatures of passion or rage, but of hunger, clinical and calculating. Every inch of their being seems sculpted to feed, and worse still, to remain hidden in plain sight. Okay, very vampire vibe I'm getting here. Wrapped in elaborate corpse-powered exosuits to appear humanoid, the sloth mocks the dead they consume. These suits are made not merely from flesh, but from memory and identity, fashioned from the bodies of their prey, animated with advanced technology and necrotic science. With these disguises, they infiltrate human society as benefactors, diplomats, and merchants, while behind the facade, the bloated horror writhes unseen. One cannot help but suspect that the sloth see all sentient life, not as rivals, but as walking meat, waiting to be harvested.
Have you guys ever looked at like a predator in the eyes, alone in the Canadian wilderness, face to face with that grizzly bear, and you know the hunger?
I'm looking at a predator in the eyes right now.
Which one is it?
Different kind of predator, though.
No, I actually have not.
Oh, me either. Well, I imagine it
Looked
would
in a
suck
cat's
looking in the
eyes.
eyes of a predator or in the eyes of the sloth as they want to feed on you.
You know,
Jordan,
ahead.
or Mark, your old cat.
Oh God.
Those are the eyes of a deranged predator.
That is funny, yeah, man. Yeah.
Just from the way that they're described, I could like see them forming, secret societies and stuff and underworlds wherein like they plot and scheme to embed themselves into the social fabric, and so that they can harvest the cattle, the meat cattle.
The meat cattle. Oh man. Lupical says, we're just about to say, do savage cats count? Yeah, they can. One thing I love down in Panama is every time I go to town, I go get some fried chicken, and then I go find a pack of stray dogs or stray cats, and I hang out with them for a bit, feed them some chicken, eat some chicken, and you're just...
Oh, I thought you were going to
some
say you
dogs.
fry some dogs and cats.
No,
Isn't that
I
what
do
you're
the
supposed
monkeys
to
down
do?
here.
Oh,
No, you stay cultural. Yeah, I'm not in the Philippines. We don't do that here. I did ask, like, which animals are we allowed to eat? Horse? Is horse allowed? And they said, no, horse is no good here either. I'm like, good. So, the powers and abilities. The sloth wield technology that defies rational science, shrouded in a haze of rotting flesh and incomprehensible design. Their weaponry, disguised with human framework, emits entropy fields and psychic toxins capable of rending flesh to sludge or unraveling sanity in seconds. But it is not the guns nor the machines that make them terrifying. It is their ability to infest the mind. Through psychoactive drugs and mimetic conditioning, they manipulate the weak-willed, turning governors into thralls and soldiers into silent butchers. Perhaps their most dreadful gift is patience. The sloth do not strike swiftly. Instead, they infect. They build networks of corpse traders and black market aristocrats addicted to their alchemical substances. These human pawns, addicted to power, luxury, and the tainted gifts of the sloth, serve both as a buffer and bait. Where Inquisitor sees rebellion or corruption, the Slaugth have already moved on, their presence obscured, their purpose unreadable. Their strength lies not only in alien power, but in horrific realization that you've never noticed them until it was far too late. Yeah, that's so cool, man. They just kind of go in and they just start kind of making these deals and trading people. And yeah, they don't want to go in and conquer a planet right away and have one big feast. They want to turn it into kind of like a factory farm of meat.
Are they so bad? I was gonna mention that I wondered how they got people to work with them, because they're very obviously not human. So like for them to seduce you or trick you when they look so horrific. But that's where the psychic abilities, I guess, come in to turn people into their thralls.
Yeah. Their technology is pretty wild too, and we'll read more about it. It's hard to understand too the limits of it and what it can do. It almost seems like it's one of those. It's like vibranium or whatever, except made of human flesh and can do anything. It depends on what you need to do. You can kind of just do it.
Yeah, I think the part where it mentions framed and human, I think it's meant to disguise the technology to look like human technology, not that it's made from human. From human.
Well, that's a very different picture I have now in my head. I hate them still a lot, but not as much.
Yeah, but it is interesting. Like you could use like a las gun or a power sword to represent the technology, but it does completely different things that you wouldn't expect.
I see.
Because it's hidden in the tech. All right, let's get into their history. The origin of the Slaugth is unknown, lost in the ancient past that predates most recorded Imperial history. Some claim they arrived from beyond the galactic rim. Others whisper that they have always been here, buried in forgotten systems and waiting for the fall of man. The Imperium's official records barely acknowledge them, relegated to redacted inquisitorial files and forbidden tomes. Yet every few centuries, a planet dies too quietly. A ruling dynasty vanishes overnight, and a familiar trail of flesh-dealing, rot-tinged decadence points back to the same shadowed influence. The Calixus sector holds the most evidence of their foul presence, particularly in the Malfian subsector, where noble houses fall to whispers and pleasure cults rise like fungus from graves. The Inquisition has uncovered hints, secret trade routes, xenophagic cults, and ancient flesh markets, but never the Slaugth themselves. Like maggots in a corpse, they surface only when the host is too far gone to save. Some claim they were responsible for more than one planetary purge falsely attributed to chaos or rebellion. But even these admissions are spoken only behind sealed doors, in vaults where their silence is as sacred as truth. Yeah, so we don't really know where they came from or how old they are, but they seem to just appear places. So, like, were they always there waiting, biding their time? Were they awoken at some point? Or did they come to the world from like on a ship somewhere and then slowly infiltrate the society more recently?
An apple on your countertop and it develops maggots, and you leave it there for 1,000,000 years, does it then turn into one of these? Maybe.
Hard. Just one maggot.
All right.
And that's why fruit is unhealthy for you.
That's why. Stay away, kids.
Okay, let's get into the homeworld and galactic geography. No known map bears the location of the Slaught's homeworld, and perhaps it never will. The few fragments retrieved from xenos data caches and mind-shattering agents suggest a place of endless decay, a planet soaked in biochemical sludge and shadow, where cities are built of bone and fed by corpse conveyors stretching across continents. This world, if it exists, is not one the living could visit. It is a graveyard god realm, where death is not an ending but a resource. Some believe it lies in a pocket dimension, others in the hidden voids between stable warp routes, places only madmen and monsters can reach. Ooh, so they could be sort of could the implications of this be that they are some sort of warp creature if they were in the warp? Or am I going too far out there?
Warp or other dimensional.
Is there a difference?
Like
What's the difference?
yeah, like they're okay. Well, okay, so
There are
maybe I
pocket
guess
dimensions, like the Necron.
Okay.
yeah, so the warp is a parallel dimension, so it mimics ours. So there are alternate dimensions. There are all types of weird ones. So what makes the warp unique is that parallel nature of it.
Okay.
But yeah, there's also pocket ones with all their own rules and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
But that would be the most horrific pocket dimension. Between this and the Necron flayed one's pocket dimension,
Yeah.
where you just go there, it's conveyor belts of flesh and gore. Ugh. I used to be an electrician, and we would work with metal cables, and you would sweat, and the metal would sweat onto your hands, and you would smell like this metal, human, sweaty. It was rank, man. It was the worst. And the pocket dimension would be 10 times worth, I'd imagine.
Despite the lack of confirmed territory, Slaugth influence radiates across sectors via clandestine networks. They are known to frequent the periphery and other lawless zones, seeding influence through rogue traders, xenos smugglers, and corrupt planetary elites. Their galactic strategy is one of metastasis, not occupying planets openly, but infecting them subtly, drawing them into a web of death and control. Wherever the veil of civilization thins, whether rot festers behind gilded curtains, there may lie a gate to the Slaugth, and behind it, something far worse than death. So yeah, like I was saying, they're the galaxy's Illuminati.
Yeah, wait. So like they specialize in infiltrating governments and corrupting them. Did Jeffrey Epstein work for the Slaugth? And the island was just used to feed children to these maggot people.
Pretty much. I think
We
that's
did
a good speculation.
Huh.
Yeah.
Neat.
He was just working
That's why the
for
government
Slaugth.
can't tell us.
Yeah.
The cultures and belief of the Slaugth. The Slaugth possess no culture, in a human sense, no art, no joy, no aspiration. What they have instead is hunger, codified into civilization, decay elevated to philosophy. If they worship anything, it is entropy itself, the slow, inevitable breakdown of all things into consumable matter. Their actions are not driven by conquest or creed, but by an all-consuming desire to feed, on bodies, on thoughts, on civilizations. They view sapient species as little more than ambulatory fucking words. Karen, waiting to be possessed into sustenance or reshaped into tools of further corruption. What passes for morality among them is measured in flesh harvested and power sustained. It is said among the order of Xenos that the Slaugth believe memory itself can be preserved in meat, and thus they consume not just to survive, but to inherit. They digest enemies and allies alike, seeking to retain knowledge, skill, and personality traits within their rotting bulk. Whether this is a ritual or practicality is unclear, but reports of human collaborators ritually offering themselves to be devoured suggest a grim theology. The most loyal of their cults believe that they will live on inside their masters, not in spirit, but in a grotesque biological continuality. In this necrophilic mockery of salvation, to be consumed is the highest honor. Fucking creeps. I'll tell you what, I've ate a person, and it wasn't good.
Culture, and what'd you say?
I'll tell you, I've ate a person, and it wasn't good. You got to really struggle through to get through a whole fucking person. These guys don't have that problem, so that's nice.
They enjoy it.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that little bit about them ingesting memories and stuff. It just makes them feel like too human. Like there is a purpose to all of it beyond just the hunger.
Does there though? I mean, it gives off the strong same when we did the vampire episode too. Some, like, it's an alien mind. It could be driven by simple needs, right? Even think about Tyranids, like all, like such powerful genetic evolutionary control, like I guess technology for lack of a better word, and it's all just to eat. Like,
Yeah, I suppose
it is the most base purpose for existing, but also like
you do,
like it's beautiful in its
fuck.
simplicity.
Do you wonder though, like, are they, if they're like embedding themselves in all these societies and presumably xenos societies as well, why aren't they like a more major player in the galactic story? Like, it seems you don't really hear much about them, but they hypothetically are like the ones behind the emperor. They could be manipulated into his will.
They're eating the 1,000 psychers a day.
Yeah,
They're the ones doing it.
The emperor doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it could be
go, Christian.
It could be a numbers game. There's just not that many of them out there. Because each one is even like who knows how many million maggots. It could be for any number of reasons. I don't think they need to be a major player, and the way they operate is using other entities as their shields, right? Like, do you need an army of Slaugth when you can just use an army of humans subjugated to your will? That seems a lot easier. The other thing is, I did wonder how they interact with other xenos species. Do they just eat human flesh? I mean, Necron would be unfazed by these guys. So yeah, I wonder, like, do Tyranids consume these guys and just like absorb them into their gene pool, or do these things like infest orc cultures, or can they even do they eat fungus? Do they need it to be meat? Like, does their digestion only subsist on human flesh? Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe the other thing I think too about being like a major player is just like how empire building or empire minded they are. And these guys, they just don't care. Like, we don't even know if they have a home world. Like you said, they might just be warp creatures. So, not having the ability to kind of maintain kind of some type of empire or some form really hinders you.
The Looper call in the chat says the Emperor is 3 grots in a coat. It used to be 4, but 1 left on a boat.
Fuck.
Got us again. Yeah, I still think there's a lot of unknowns with these guys, which is fine. Again, that's how I like to keep it. I like the hidden menace being a quiet thing. Like, not everything has to be a galactic level threat or scale enemy.
Yeah, but I don't know, the way that they're written into the story is like they are embedded in all sorts of elite castes among.
Sure, but that, like, in an Imperium that spans millions, if not billions, of worlds, 100 of those worlds, 1,000 of those worlds, that's nothing.
Okay, I see.
Like,
yeah,
you got to look at the scale of it.
Yeah, if that is the case, then yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. Right, let's get into their technology. Slaugth technology is as alien as their motives. Vicious, wet, and pulsing with synthetic life. It is not constructed in the traditional sense, but grown or grafted from living materials steeped in biochemical rot. Their devices resemble tumors made more than tools, often built of necrotic tissue, interwoven with dark alloys and psychic conduits. Most horrifying of all are their flesh suits, sophisticated biomechanical carcasses harvested from the dead and reanimated to serve as disguises. These suits not only mask the Slaugth's repellent form, but allow them to imitate human gestures and speech, making them nearly indistinguishable from the living until it is too late. Their machines violate the boundary between organism and mechanism. Slaugth energy weapons emit waves of entropy that unravel cellular cohesion, while their sensory tools feed not on light or sound, but on the psychic echoes of fear and death. They employ syrinxes, bio-devices that release mind-altering pheromones and narcotic fogs to weaken will and erode resistance. More terrifying still are the memory-harvesting relics, which strip the essence from sentient beings and distill it into consumable form. In their hands, technology is not a tool for building, but a means of dissection, consumption, and control. So that also, they do have the psychic way of controlling or enthralling people, but also it looks like they can just literally make flesh suits. Reminds me of the cockroach alien in Men in Black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, they can always make some type of crazy narcotic thing.
Gas,
Yeah, to really take it over the edge, their illusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems like their tech, their weapons. Yeah, I read it earlier as that they disguise it in human form. I think that still holds true. Like the actual way these things look is like biomechanical and grotesque, but then they can disguise it to look like a lasgun or like a pistol or something.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into the military. The Slaugth have no armies in the conventional sense. They need none. Their warfare is asymmetric, parasitic, and insidious. Rather than march across worlds, they infect them, using networks of flesh merchants, assassins, and drug bureaucrats to subvert societies from within. When force is required, they do not field legions of soldiers, but unleash necrotic horrors grown in vats, living weapons sculpted from corpses, stitched with the xenoflesh, and programmed to kill without hesitation or mercy. These constructs move with the single-minded precision of machines, yet exude the rot and reek of graves long forgotten. Inquisitorial records speak of the Slaugth deploying entropy, projectors that melt bunkers into sludge, and assassins cloaked in corpses that whisper secrets stolen from the minds of the dead. Their tactics are surgical and revolting, targeted decay, psychological disintegration, and atmospheric corruption. When a world falls to the Slaugth, there are seldom survivors, not because it was burned or bombarded, but because it rotted from within. The true horror of their military approach is not its power, but its precision. They strike only when the wound is already festering and the patient too numb to scream.
Fun. Real fun guys. Real neat.
Well, at least we know that they're not corrupted by the military-industrial complex.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. Yeah, that is good to know. Well, what other relations do they have to things in the galaxy beyond just eating them? We'll find out. To most of the galaxy, the Slaugth are myth, boogeymen, whispered about in forbidden texts, redacted data slates. But to the Order of Xenos and the few unfortunate rogue traders, they are festering reality. Their dealings are cloaked in criminal empires, rogue trader networks, and cults of decadence that stretch across the stars. They are not interested in diplomacy or elite alliances. They only pretend to be. When they offer trade, it is poison. When they offer help, it is the hand of mortification preparing the corpse. Those who deal with the Slaugth are soon found changed, hollow-eyed and addicted, and useful. The only true relationships are with the dead and dying. While chaos and tyranids, even the Necron, consume or corrupt through spectacle and force, the Slaugth infest the intercities of the Imperium. The decadent fridges, the shadow courts, and the planetary underbellies. They thrive in the cracks left by overextension and rarely confronted directly. Most Xenos empires ignore them, and few realize the depth of their reach. The Slaugth have enemies, they are silent, and if they have allies, they already are in your house, and they have plans, you already are part of them. Yeah, gross. I don't like them. They're everywhere. So Jordan, maybe they are a galactic player, but in just such a very different sense where like they
Just
are
a subtle way.
Yeah, and like they are doing their maximum output because they're not waging war in a similar way that we are. This is how they
I mean,
do the galaxy dirty.
yeah, I mean, it could be they sort of have enough foresight to realize that they don't want to overdo it. So they just
Yeah,
their consumption and what they do is just subtle enough that it's not a big enough problem to actually be pursued by anyone.
yeah,
They don't want to
Yeah.
acquire too much attention. A lot of criminal operations actually do that too.
Sure. Yeah.
Like they avoid the eye of the law, so they'll like play nice as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like they'll be the most cutthroat, ruthless people you'll ever meet, but they avoid too much attention on purpose because obviously that's bad for business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it hard to do what you want.
Yeah.
Dylan in the chat asks if they're Nurgle's heralds. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think that all species. Obviously, there's the overlapping theme of rot and decay, but I think this is in a very real sense of like when things rot, maggots appear, societies rot. These guys are causing that internal rot.
Yeah.
But not in the mystical sense of like Nurgle involvement. There's nothing that really ties metaphysically with Nurgle, I would say.
Yeah.
Like Zach also, or sorry, yeah, go ahead.
And maybe like just if there was like, you know, we are tying races to gods, like Harud would be a way better example of Nurgle's heralds than these guys, in my opinion. But
yeah, and I don't think that all species need to be necessarily tied
exactly.
to warp god.
Yeah.
Zach also in the chat there says they are very much giving me Gene Stealer vibes. Yeah, and in the way again, like that whole like insidious nature of infiltrating society. But they come out with like a crescendo, like by the end of it, you know it was a Tyranid cult if you let it go on too long. Whereas these guys prefer to let things kind of collapse and them to disappear without you ever knowing it was even them at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, very same infiltration of society vibes.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Well, we'll get to the last.
Do you want to talk about representation at all? Or?
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Sorry, I forgot those guys. Yeah, models and minis. Do you guys have any ideas on how you would use either of them?
I mean, they'd be pretty easy to do. Just find any kind of robed or cloaked figure. You could use Gene Stealer model, like cultists with like hoods. They wear flesh suits, so any model could really be them. If you wanted to get crazy, you could like sculpt a mass of like worms, like you see that image with the hooded head with a bunch of worms coming off the face. Wouldn't be the hardest sculpt job, but if you wanted to go
get some green stuff and just start kind of drawing lines. Yeah. And like we've talked about different scales of like where would we find them? Like obviously we don't find these guys in like epic scale fighting titans. Like this is like Necromunda hero level. So you'd only ever have to make one, maybe two of these guys if you were doing ever minis and stuff. So yeah, I think Christian, doing your way, find a robed mini and do your darn best to just green stuff some maggots on them.
Yeah, Lupercal says Nazgul conversion.
Oh yeah,
and Purge says use Watchers. The cloaked figures. Yeah, all of those are good options.
I think the Nazgul are better just for size. The Watchers are so small.
I know, but like, does it say they'd blend in with the human society, but there's short humans.
Sure. And I guess they're a pile of maggots. Maybe they start off only 50
small
maggots and get many more. And yeah.
Yeah, I think any of those are suitable options for sure.
Yeah. Very cool. Rules, once again, you would probably just use him as a hero upgrade in Necromunda. Maybe he's like your warlord or something kind of behind the scenes, but definitely some one-off type character.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. You want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, the Sslyth. So just as mentioned, I definitely went farther than should have when reading or writing about these guys. They were so cool, man, and they have a cool model, but you never really get much on them. So let's see if we can do some justice for them.
Okay. The Sslyth are serpentine xenos of vile repute, most often encountered in the shadows of the galaxy's criminal underworld. Known for their service as mercenaries, bodyguards, and assassins, these alien killers are valued by rogue traders, pirates, and the depraved Drukhari alike. To most Imperial citizens, the Sslyth are little more than whispered rumors, inhuman shapes seen lurking near slavers' cages or veiled monsters attending to forbidden auctions. Their allegiance is fluid, dictated only by the weight of coin or cruelty, and they are utterly devoid of loyalty or conscience. Though not a spacefaring species in their own right, Sslyth infest the hidden corners of the galaxy, brought to new worlds by unscrupulous xenos traffickers and heretics seeking their unique talents. They are abominations in the eyes of the Imperium, deemed a clear and present danger to mankind. The Inquisition mandate extermination on sight, for to tolerate the presence of the Sslyth is to invite venom into one's veins. Efficient, brutal, and alien to the core, these serpents are predators with no homeland, only prey.
Yeah, cool. I haven't pulled up a picture of them, but I'll do that right now. They're very cool looking. Everyone give me your best sneaky little snake impersonation. Are you guys a sneaky little slithery snake or what?
I'm not.
Yes.
There you go, Jordan.
I'm not.
Yeah, these guys are
I
sweet.
decline your offer.
If you're looking at them, they have mucho arms, many arms. Ocho. No, not that many. Four. That's not what I said.
Yeah, they're very seraph-like, seraphim.
Yeah.
They're also very much like the aliens that the Emperor's Children annihilated.
Yeah.
The name is total. I'm blanking on their name right now.
The
Help me in the chat
Lear.
there.
The Lear.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe the only difference with the Lear is they were more like modified. Like they had different, like actual different casts almost. I think some had.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. They're different species. And yeah, the Lear, and some of them were even described as almost like insectoid in their faces.
Yeah.
But they had the whole forearms and like serpentine tail.
Yeah, and then like Fulgrim turns into like something very similar after taking the Lear blade. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then with the Sslyth association, close association with the Dark Eldar, and the whole close association with Slanesh. Through that, when I first read about the Lear, I assumed they were actually Sslyth until I read farther.
Yeah,
but they are very cool.
And while we're looking at them, let's discuss their appearance in biology. The Sslyth are towering and grotesquely elegant xenos with a reptilian lower body that slithers and coils, propelling them with silent menace. Their upper torsos are disturbingly humanoid, yet unmistakably alien. Muscular arms ending in clawed hands, cold scale flesh, and heads crowned with ridged skulls and lidless glaring eyes. Standing over twice the height of a man and moving with serpentine grace, the Sslyth exude a terrifying mix of poise and predatory intent. Their biology is as lethal as their appearance. Sslyth possess dual brains, one situated in the skull and the other in the coiled depths of their lower body. This redundancy grants them incredible resilience to psychic assault and rapid adaptability in battle. Cold-blooded and venomous, their physiology is a weapon in itself. They are difficult to detect with conventional auspex scans, and their regenerative capabilities allow them to shrug off injuries that would fell even an Astartes. To confront one in close quarters is to face a nightmare perfectly evolved for murder. Yeah, that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah. I can just imagine how quick and just like, you see a snake striking and the only thing that can stop it is a quick cat paw. But the rest of us are fucked. Yeah, and this coming at you would be so crazy. I was Googling, like, what do you call a snake centaur? And any type of centaur, you actually call it a centaur. And then you will add whatever animal to it, apparently. So if you're doing, like, a wolf centaur, it's like a wolf centaur. Like it is like that. They do have fancier words like for like for a donkey, it's a onocentaur or a hippocentaur. But fucking who cares?
Interesting.
I thought they had a cool word for it than centaur, but there's a lot of these types of creatures for sure. Humanoid, animal.
Yeah. Also very mythological as well. The snake. That's the talking serpent.
Oh god. Their powers and abilities. In combat, the Sslyth are living engines of destruction, swift, brutal, and utterly remorseless. They are capable of wielding multiple weapons with expert proficiency, often seen brandishing paired blades and twin firearms, in display of overwhelming martial skill. Their strength is prodigious, allowing them to tear through ceramite and bone, crush through bone with ease, while their flexibility enables them to strike from impossible angles. To be surrounded by Sith is to die screaming, your limbs torn asunder by scaled monsters, with no hint of mercy. What makes the Sslyth truly formidable is not only their physical might, but their tactical awareness. Their dual brain structure permits them to process battlefield information with terrifying efficiency, coordinating strikes with deadly precision, and anticipating the movements of lesser foes. They've been known to operate in cohesive hunting pairs or as silent sentinels for high-value targets, reacting to threats far faster than most can draw breath. Against the Sslyth, brute force, courage are not enough. Only overwhelming firepower or the Emperor's mercy offers salvation. Yeah, cool, man. That quick, like they know what you're gonna do before you do it, and they're just reacting so quick, man. It's almost foresight, but it's just reaction.
Yeah. In the chat there, Dylan says it feels Arabic somewhat, kind of djinn-like, and Purge says, so we have Murlocs and the Naga from WoW that use guns and spaceships. Yeah, not wrong. He also said that granted Naga are mythological creatures. Yeah, I totally didn't space on that, but like out of Eastern mythology, Naga are exactly what you're describing as like half human, half serpent.
Yeah.
Or perfect example.
I mean, yeah, there's so many universes and properties that employ, like frog beings or snake beings or ant beings or blah blah blah, right? So yeah.
What can I say? People like fucking animals.
Yep.
It's a tradition as old as time.
Maybe it is down in Panama.
Mark.
What we do down here, George, is none of your business.
All right, well, let's get into the history of the Sslyth. The origins of the Sslyth are obscured by lies, lost records, and deliberate eradication. Some say Mark impregnated a snake. No, I'm just kidding. The Imperium knows little of their early history, save that they are not native to any of the worlds under its dominion. What is known has been filtered through xenological interrogation and scraps recovered from intercepted xenodata caches. The Drakari were likely the first to discover and exploit the Sslyth, dragging them from their homeworld in chains, or perhaps forging dark pacts with them. Since then, Sslyth have spread like a venomous tide, slipping into the underbellies of countless starports and lawless systems. There's a lot of S's in that. I think that's intentional. Throughout recent millennia, Sslyth have appeared alongside pirate bands, corsair fleets, and on the rosters of particularly reckless rogue traders. Their presence is always a sign of deeper corruption, for few beings would willingly hire such monstrosities unless their tasks ahead involved slaughter, betrayal, or terror. Though they possess no known central government or unified agenda, the Sslyth are not primitive. They are calculating and dangerous. Their fractured history is a testament of centuries of adaptation to war, servitude, and profit through death. I really like them. I like that they're kind of scattered about and can be used as mercenaries in lots of different factions.
Yeah,
they're pretty cool.
Yeah, some races just enjoy the war and are just good at it, built for it. This guy's not gonna make a good, like, I don't know, carpenter.
He's got 4 arms, dude. Think of the buildings he could.
No, but he's like, you can't put a steel toe boot on that tail. He's gonna be workplace like it's situations.
He's a walking OSHA violation.
Yeah, exactly. There's some situations people are just not made for.
But war, these guys can do war.
He's made for
sure.
war.
Yeah, it's cool. But like, you could include one in a reckless road trader band, or you could put him in your Dark
Tau.
Eldar war band. Tau could use them. Yeah, and I wish there were more models of this guy, but we can get to that at the end.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Okay, homeworld and galactic geography. The original Sslyth homeworld remains unidentified, shrouded by the mists of time and deliberate obfuscation by the xenos themselves or their captors. What little is known suggests a hot, humid planet with dense vegetation and subterranean cave systems, ideal breeding grounds for predators who thrive on ambush and close combat. Whether the Sslyth were uplifted from this world by slavers or abandoned it by their own volition is unclear. But what is certain is that they are no longer confined to it, if it still exists. Now the Sslyth are found across the darker regions of the galaxy, hidden within the black stone markets of Komara, guarding treasures vaults in the halo stars, or embedding among the scum of the eastern fringe. They are without borders, without honor, and without pity. Their movements are difficult to track as they travel with pirates, smugglers, and rogue psychers, willing to ferry them in exchange for protection or bloodshed. Wherever galactic law has failed and civilization lies rotting, the Sslyth slither in silence, waiting to strike.
Dylan says, but a ship mechanic sliding through ducts and vents for repairs? See, now we're talking. Great job for him. Excellent job.
A more civilized job. They don't have to be vagrants and reprobates anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be responsible.
Do an honest
members
day's
of
work.
society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know too much about their homeworld and all that kind of stuff. It almost doesn't even sound like they have warp travel or an ability for like spaceships. We'll get to that a little bit later. So that's kind of interesting for them. They kind of have to rely on other people. We'll go to the cultures and beliefs. The Sslyth possess no religion, no recorded dogma, and no observed rituals beyond the economy of violence. Their culture, if it can be called that, is one of hierarchy through domination. Strength, cunning, and lethality are the only currencies of value among their kind. It is whispered that the Sslyth broods are led by the most ruthless among them, alpha killers who rise to leadership by marauding their rivals in contests of serpentine brutality. They do not build temples or carve monuments. They carve flesh, mark kills, and trade death for status. Despite their lack of traditional civilization, Sslyth display an alien sense of order, cold, calculating, and wholly amoral. They do not show compassion or loyalty, only pragmatism. Pragmatism. Fuck. Thought I got it that time, but still didn't. They remain in a service to a warlord, a crime syndicate, or a Drakari Archon for decades, only to switch sides in a moment the balance of power shifts. Some Xenos scholars speculate that the Sslyth believe in nothing beyond survival and superiority, driven by a predatory instinct honed over centuries. Whatever inner world exists in their dual minds, it is one of silence and coiled malice. Whew, yeah. I like that little bit about they don't carve temples, they carve flesh. Like they're not bothered with much beyond the art of war.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful art.
They're very much driven by instinct a lot more than sort of higher minded ideals. Almost not unlike the Slaugth in some ways.
It's very human supremacist of you, Jordan.
Well, I'm just saying.
They don't even believe in democracies, these savages.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
but it's just like where like the Slaugth, they're sort of driven by hunger. The Sslyth are just kind of more driven by instinct. But it's hard, like in my own, again, my human mind, it's hard to like conceptualize that a being or a species could like interact with a very highly technological civilization and even like linguistically as well, but still be like that driven by instinct and not like have higher abstraction in their own mind and conception of reality, I guess. Does that make sense, or am I a little too
It
It makes sense, but I
okay?
disagree.
yeah, like it. Go, Christian.
Yeah, like I get what you mean, Jordan. Again, aliens don't have to think like us, and you like to assign like you like to assume there's a higher motivation.
Yeah, but that's why I said
sometimes
I'm just saying it's
there
hard
doesn't
in my
need-
own human mind to conceptualize. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
I know you caveated it, but yeah, and that's why I don't agree. Is like, no, it's alien.
Right.
It doesn't need to conform to human perceptions of what a civilization ought to look like. It does appear instinctual to us, but it could be like, oh no, they're well reasoned. I just like killing. Like I genuinely enjoy doing this thing, and that's what drives me to continue doing it more.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be that deeply thought out. And I like that. I like the simplicity to it.
It is interesting that they're willing to flip when the tide goes south. Like they're not going down with the ship, these guys. So, you don't want to use them in times of actual like need. Like, yeah, you hire them when you're at the top of the pile, and yeah, they can help keep order. But like when you're trying to get to the top or you're in dangerous situations, you're not going to be able to count on these guys.
Yeah.
Not fully.
Yeah, which again, like that also speaks to the kind of their motivations as well. Like they're not ideologically possessed by whatever cause you're fighting for.
Yeah, they're not going to
so
die for your cause.
Yeah, exactly. They might get killed.
They'll kill for your cause, yeah, but they're
not willing to lay their lives down for it for sure. I think they're like a very, I mean, there's a whole duplicitous thing too with the nature of, I mean, in a mythological sense with the nature of snakes, as well as the like whole idea of mercenaries. Like these are the prototypical mythological form of a mercenary. Mercenaries aren't trustworthy. They're not ideologically driven. They're driven, like you said, Jordan, you would argue might be more base desires, be it the bloodshed itself or by gold or whatever it is that motivates a mercenary to act. I don't personally agree with all these assumptions, but they are cultural assumptions of mercenaries. So
yeah.
Anyways, let's get into their technology. The Sslyth are not technological innovators, but adapters, scavengers and refiners of what others have created. They wield a mixture of stolen, salvaged, and supplied weaponry, often of Drakari origin, enhanced or customized for their unique physiology. Twin snake rifles, bladed with pole arms, and double-barreled splinter pistols are their tools of choice, crafted to fit the sweep of their motion and the strength of their arms. They do not mass-produce weapons. Each piece of gear is earned, taken, or bartered in blood. Strangely, Sslyth seem to possess a natural instinct for integrating advanced weapon systems into their style of combat. They take no pride in the creation of technology, but they master its application with horrifying efficiency. Armor, when worn, is sleek and chitinous, often designed by dark artisan xenos. While they lack the infrastructure of a proper empire, their armaments are no less deadly, acquired through raids, deals, or the corpses of those who once wielded them. To face a fully equipped Sslyth in battle is to confront centuries of stolen knowledge honed into an apex predator. Yeah. You'll even notice like the one model we have of them, all their weapons and war gear are very dark Eldar. They don't look like it's unique technology of their own.
Yeah, like do they even have builders, artisans, stuff like that? Like they're all just warriors. There is some cool conversions that you can do nowadays though because of all the extra snake bits. I just seen one that I just kind of pulled up and whoa. But yeah, we'll save that for the end there. Let's talk about their military next.
So the Sslyth do not field armies in conventional sense. They do not raise banners or march in formation. Instead, they serve as elite enforcers, bodyguards, and executioners. One or two among of a den of pirates, or a handful guarding the chambers of a dark Eldar overlord. When Sslyth gather in larger numbers, it is a rare and terrifying convergence, a mercenary host driven by coin, vengeance, or the scent of prey. These collectives fight not for glory or conquest, but for the promise of carnage and profit. In battle, Sslyth are shock troops of unparalleled ferocity. Their style is aggressive, close quarters, and unrelenting, coiling between ranks, severing limbs and unleashing bursts of gunfire with inhuman precision. They thrive in confined environments, space hulks, underhives, corridors where lesser foes cannot flee. A small team of Sslyth can dismantle an entire company of unprepared PDF or even give pause to a kill team of Adeptus Astartes. They do not shout battle cries or revel in chaos. They strike, kill, and vanish like the serpents they are.
Oh man, yeah, very cool. I can just picture a bunch of them if you ever did see just slithering, crawling around. The sound that they would make, just all of them moving together. Oof.
Yeah, also, just the fact that it's very no nonsense and almost silent, that actually makes it even more terrifying.
Yeah, and you just hear that snake rustle like,
Yeah.
hey.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
They're not like idiot rattlesnakes who announce their presence.
Yeah, stupid idiot snakes. Galactic relations. To the Imperium, Sslyth are classified as xenos horrificus, an abomination to be purged without question. Inquisitors order extermination on sight, and the Adeptus Mechanicus records concerning them are sealed under heavy encryption. The Sslyth are neither diplomats nor invaders. They slip between the cracks of civilization, allying only with those whose cause suits their venomous interests. They may serve under rogue traders, Xenos coalitions, and Dark Eldar warbands, but never as equals. No alliance with the Sslyth is permanent. It ends with the blood dries or a better offer slithers in. Among other Xenos, the Sslyth are regarded with a mixture of fear and utility. The Tau have employed them through fringe contracts, but even the water caste avoids prolonged exposure. The Drukhari are the most familiar with the Sslyth, often using them as bodyguards, executioners, and executioners within Komorra, though even they do not trust these scaled mercenaries. The Sslyth are tolerated only so long as they remain useful, and they are all too aware of that fact. They do not need allies, they only need contracts, silence, and the opportunity to strike when the galaxy turns its back. Fucking tight. Honestly, I wish I was a snake fan. Like, some people really latch on to certain animals. I wish that was me and snakes, because, fuck, look at these conversions, man. Don't they make you want to do a bunch? It's like the Daughters of Cain with, incubi on top. So cool.
Yeah, no, I love them, honestly. I think they're really cool. And that's my biggest gripe with them, is that there's only one official model.
Yeah, but the conversion is so easy, man. Like, yeah, you have to buy 2 kits, but like, you take the Daughter of Cain's snake bits and you literally just slap the Drukhari on at the torso.
Yeah, I'd have to actually see it because like you need to still get the forearms in there for them to be more accurate. There are some third-party models I've seen, like 3D prints that you can get too, that look really cool and really brutal looking. They're like very like, yeah, those guys look sick.
Those guys
using
crazy.
Like Eldar helmets and things. I do like that look, but it's still too distant from what a Sslyth actually looks like. Like if you look at the head mold of an actual Sslyth model, if you look to your right, like that head would not fit in that helmet. So if they all look consistently one way, that's fine. But like if you want to be true, like these look absolutely fantastic. But
Yeah, you
Like,
need
for
that
me-
head. I get what you're saying. Like, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, they have like that serpentine snout that's kind of sticks out.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
yeah, 3D printed models. There's a few options you have there. You could probably find some cool fantasy Naga ones and cut their wrists off and glue some guns on there. And that also provides for other Sslyth that aren't necessarily Dark Eldar coded. They could be, be wielding Imperial weapons or
Sure. Yeah.
something like that.
I think the big thing to look out for, though, is when you're making these guys, is be aware of the forearms, because that will seriously limit you.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you could always come up with an excuse, like maybe they're a subspecies, maybe, but it is a pretty big.
Yeah.
I'm reaching here, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I'm working with what I got.
You're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, I think they're really cool. Turns of snakes, something Metal Gear joke. That's all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's this episode of Lorehammer. We made it through. I love the minor xenos. I think my favorite one of these ones. Man, I had a good time talking about the Slanni, what they could be. But I would never collect them. I'm not drawn to them. The Sslyth, man, I think, honestly, if I was ever to do some, they called me. They're licking their little tongue in my ear. Sslyth.
Yeah, the beauty of these ones is they're easy one model armies. Like,
Sure.
honestly.
All
You
of
buy
these guys, I
one-
suppose, are.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can buy one Lord Croak model, boom, there you go. You get one little hooded figure, draw some maggots on it, boom, you're done. You
Nice.
collect one snake eye and throw him in with any other army you got going, boom, you're done.
Yeah. Man, it would be very cool to see, like, a Sslyth all war geared out from everything. Like, he's got some Tau war gear, like a Tau rifle, maybe, Dark Elder, Husk Blade, just a couple different, like, pieces from here and
Bolt
there.
pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet. The opportunities for Sslyth are just like, you could do a lot with them.
Yeah,
There's
man.
no contraventions on what war gear they're rocking. So
Yeah. Jordan, did you have a favorite?
For me, it was definitely this Slanni.
Yeah, first ones.
I think it's cool to go with the frog aesthetic. I think not a lot of people want to do that, but I think it's sweet. And also I'm always a sucker for like ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We did that battery bust episode about the Ancient Eldar one, and I've just been daydreaming about them. Fighting the urge. Don't text Jordan now. Just let him sleep.
Yeah.
And I do.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think I'm more partial to them. I even kind of like some of the models that people have made of them, so they're kind of cool. Anyways,
Yeah. Like I said, the Slanni, very interesting, very fun to talk about, but yeah, I don't know. Just don't take it for me, but glad they do it for you. Sky says the frog stuff has a lot of esoteric meaning as well.
yeah, that's what I was saying earlier on when we first started talking about them. There's a lot of symbolism in the frog that people don't know. That's both ancient symbolism and even modern symbolism with Keck Boy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, what have we done to the noble frog?
Pepe the frog, yeah. So
yeah, very cool. Well, I think the next episode will be it might be Tau Alliance Aliens Minor Xenos, but we'll find out when we get there. We'll see you all on the next episode of Lorehammer next week. Adios.